Fancy synergistic builds and insane team comps are great and all, but sometimes you just need to have a base to work from when building a unit. And today, we're going to talk about just that. My name is Tom, otherwise known as Titanium Legman, and welcome back to the channel.
Unicorn Overlord.
Hello everyone, if you enjoy what I do, my coverage of Unicorn Overlord, strategy RPGs, or the gaming sphere in general, a like on this video and a subscription to the channel would be very much appreciated. We're getting very close to hitting 20,000 subscribers, which is not something that I was expecting to have happen this year, so if you could help out with that, it would be very much appreciated. Again, thank you so very much. So what is the topic of the day today? Well, I've had a number of people ask me about just general tips and suggestions for building out units in the mid-game in Unicorn Overlord. I've done some videos about specific team comps as well as just unit building in general in the early game previously, but not as much for the mid-game once you start getting promoted units, upgrading your units to size 4, etc., etc. So we're going to look at an example of one of my best units with Alain's squad that has been absolutely dominating in my live streams and explain what makes it work so well and how you can kind of emulate that experience with your own unit building. I'm using Alain's squad here specifically because it's an all-rounder squad. It's not something super focused or with a very particular purpose like Bruno's Bombardiers or the Super Tax Brothers that I've talked about at length here. And I think that makes it a good place to build from for other people. So let's take a look at it here. Starting off with our analysis, we of course have Alain himself. Alain is promoted to a High Lord at this point, as are all of the characters in all of my units. This is just after clearing Elheim, but this squad has been online pretty much since we left Drakkenhold, actually, so pretty easy thing to get set up. I'm rocking Offensive Guardian with Alain's stats, and you can see he's pretty damn tanky. Has good offense, good defense, good evasion. He's all around a very strong unit. And yes, of course, Alain being very powerful does make it much easier to build an all-rounder squad, but he does have a lot of good support that we will get into here as well. As a frontliner, though, it is important to highlight what Alain has going on. Right now, I have him set up with an all-around pretty decent tanking setup. He's got the Templar shield that gives him some extra physical defense and guard rate. Nothing crazy, but that extra guard rate in particular does help keep him alive pretty dang well. He has the White Knight's shield, physical defense of 4, guard rate of 15%, with plus 25% guard efficiency and max HP of plus 15. Part of the reason I have this on him is because of the life share ability. Activates after an ally is hit by an attack, share HP with an ally, and it gives 50% of the user's HP. Now, I've been back and forth on whether I want to continue using this or not. I've had it on right now just for the guard efficiency and the max HP bonus, although you'll notice I don't have life share currently in use. Sometimes I like to have life share on here, but seeing as how Alain is the only frontliner I have in this squad, he hasn't really needed it. You could, of course, then swap to something else, like, say, the Nameless Guard shield to get blindness immunity and be able to potentially use medium cover if you feel the need to. Something like the Viper shield to get poison immunity. There's a lot of shields in the game, and kind of swapping these on the fly to suit the needs of whatever battle that you're in is certainly a good way to go about it. Heck, we could go with the White Rider shield. Stun immunity, guard seal immunity, and that's it. Not bad. Good physical defense. Like, you have options here. I just like the max HP bonus because Alain does take a fair amount of damage, and even though he blocks a lot of it, he will get chipped down over time until heals can kick in, so it's been a pretty beneficial thing to have on him. We then have, mainly for lore reasons, the Ring of the Unicorn, but that extra HP and guard rate is certainly not bad, and seeing as how Alain is the only one who can use it, I do like to keep it on him just to free up other accessories for other characters, and he certainly hasn't needed anything else. Finally, we have the Thunderclap Ring, an item that I just got at the end of Elheim, and this replaced a silver bangle that I had, which is somewhere in here. Or silver circlet, I should say. As you can see, it's literally a straight upgrade. Gives 2 extra magic defense, gives stun immunity, and even more max HP. And that's one of the things you really have to watch for when you're using a sole frontliner like this. What status effects are they going to get hit with? Because if your frontliner gets blinded, frozen, stunned most particularly, they're not going to be able to block for themselves or potentially block for your allies anymore, and things could fall apart really fast. So in particular, if you are using a solo frontliner or potentially even a duo of frontliners, having some good status effect resistance items, especially stun resist or stun immunity, will be very, very valuable. Then we have Cavalry Slayer for if there happens to be cavalry, just to be able to put the kibosh on, enemy knights or radiant knights or what have you. And then Lean Edge as our primary bread and butter here. Attack a single enemy, recover 25% HP if the attack hits, recover another 25% HP if the target is defeated. This is another reason that I have such high max HP on Alain, because it synergizes really well with that max HP. It's not 25% of like the damage that you deal, it's 25% of your HP. So just at base, we're recovering a little over 25 HP per hit with Lean Edge. 50% total for like, what, 53-ish health if you get a kill. That's insane. That makes Alain an incredibly effective frontline tank and kind of puts him in a similar position to me as gladiators, with the just massive amount of self-healing that he can get, even if the conditions for that activation are different. Then we have a few different abilities here. Rapid Order activates at the start of a battle, grants all allies plus 20 initiative. Luminous Cover activates for an ally's attack to cover an ally with a medium guard and grants that ally plus 20% defense. And Noble Guard activates for being hit by a physical attack, block an enemy attack with a medium guard, grants the user plus 20% defense, and grants the user plus 1 passive point if the user has 50% HP or less. All very strong abilities. Again, very specific to Alain, except for Luminous Cover, which you can get off certain shields, things like that. But the idea here is that Alain serves as a pretty self-sufficient frontliner who can hold the line and stay alive, allowing his backline to do their work. And that's largely what you want for a general all-rounder squad. That can be an evade tank, it can be a tank like a gladiator who can self-heal, it could be a legionnaire who can take a lot of physical punishment, but that's the type of thing that you're going to want in the front line more often than not. There are some more less general use things like evade tank sword fighters or things like that, or even frontline wyverns if you're going to be using parry and stuff like that a lot. But overall, this is the type of unit that you want in your front line. Something that's durable enough to survive a bunch of attacks, potentially can protect itself regularly, protect its allies, self-heal. That's what you're going to be looking for. Moving on to our back line, this is where our real big damage comes in, and our overall squad support as well. Starting with Gerold, our Lance Connect. He has the Heaven's Wing Sword, good physical attack, gives extra accuracy and evasion. The Squire's Shield for quick cover, giving himself the ability to cover for an ally. This generally is used to block for Alain, making sure that Alain can survive even longer, which is very nice. A Lapis Pendant so that he can get more usage of quick cover, of Vengeful Guard, Banishing Pursuit, all of his various powerful passive point abilities. And then the Liberator's Bracelet, which is giving him another powerful passive point ability. Gerold here is just for the raw damage, man. He is able to block, which is nice. Being able to spread damage around to have all of your units survive before a big heal comes in at the end of the combat is very powerful. But primarily, he's here to slay out and slay out really hard. He's got Killing Chain and Bastard's Cross to make sure that that happens with very frequent regularity. And his massive physical attack of 68 ensures that he's able to carve through a lot of powerful enemies. This is in part comes from the fact that he's got dual offensive growths. Thank you to the patrons who's requested this character and made sure that he absolutely is ready to slap. And overall, he's a very powerful piece. This is one part of what you're going to want, either in the front line or the back line of any given squad. Just a raw, heavy damage, single target machine is going to be very capable in most general use squads. Either for just being able to carve through a particular enemy unit and take them out quickly before they're able to start dealing damage to you, or potentially having enough raw physical power or magical power, if you're using a mage in this slot, which also works, to pound through even the toughest of defenses. There have been times where I really thought that a Legionnaire was going to cause a lot of problems for me, and then Gerold just came in with Bastard's Cross and cut them in half. It was insane. If you didn't know, Bastard's Cross has a 70 physical potency, 2 hit count effect going on, attack a single enemy, but notably, potency increases based on the target's HP with a maximum increase of plus 60. So this is a huge single target damaging attack, and it's going to be massively beneficial for you to have at least one character in a squad that can just nuke something if you need them to. Moving over here to Thais, our Sainted Knight. She's honestly probably the core of this squad, even despite how powerful Alain is, because Sainted Knights are just so good. So what does she have going on here? She also has a Templar's Sword, much like Alain. Same benefits, literally for the same reasons. It's just a good all-around defensive piece. It still lets her deal good damage. An Azure Crest Shield to give her good overall defensive capabilities and an extra passive point, which Sacred Knights desperately want. A Lapis Pendant for the same reason, and then a Silk Hood to increase her magical attack further to make her heals stronger. She has a stat spread of Hardy Offensive, which gives her very, very solid defensive stats. Her physical defense is a little lacking, but with the shield, that helps make up for it, and her magical defense is massive. Mages are not going to do anything to her. And she's got decent physical attack and even better magical attack if you choose to use like a magical blade on her, which we can. I've used the runic blade on her before. It just hasn't been super necessary at this point, so I've swapped it over to other characters. As far as the skills that we have on her, first we have Saint's Blade, a physical potency of 50 with a 2-hit count. Attacks a single enemy, extra potency about 25 if Thais is at 100% HP, which she often is, and it grants her +1 passive point if the attack hits. Not even if it kills, just if it hits. So I like to have Thais come out swinging with this near the beginning of the fight, deal some good damage, get a passive point back if she's already used one, and then, from then on, she's going to be row healing. Row heal is a ridiculously powerful skill. The fact that this is on a cavalry unit that's also armored and has a shield and can do good physical damage and has magical shields is insane. I seriously think Sainted Knight might be one of the best, if not the best classes in the game, but that's a topic for a different video. Row heal's nasty. It just restores moderate HP to a row of allies, and moderate HP at this point in the game is like basically all of your HP if you're not laid out on the floor bleeding out. It's insanely strong. Primarily, she's going to be using this on the back line, but if Alain has some damage on him and hasn't managed to heal it up due to lean edge, she can use this on him as well to keep him going. Then she has Row Barrier, activates before an ally is hit by a magic attack, negate the next magic damage dealt to a row of allies, also negates afflictions. As you get later into the game, you're going to be running into a lot of afflictions, a lot of AoE magic attacks, and having ways to defend against that in any squad is going to be massively important. I'm not kidding when I say you can absolutely slap a Radiant or Sainted Knight into a squad, any squad, and they'll probably be better off for it if they are not hyper-focused into doing one thing that that knight would not do. Just the healing, the barriers, the overall defensive capabilities while still being able to fight, it's huge. And I think it's one of the main reasons why this squad is able to handle so much. Like, you'll have seen some footage up on screen as we're talking here, where almost anything that I throw this squad against just folds. It's wild. Then we have Holy Guard, activates before being hit by a physical attack, block an enemy attack with a medium guard, and prevents debuffs. And then Magic Barrier, before an ally is hit by a magic attack, negate the next magic damage dealt to an ally, also negates afflictions. This is just the single target version of Row Barrier. Typically, Row Barrier is going to wind up being what you use as you get into the later game, but if it's not a whole row that is attacked, Magic Barrier can activate to protect a single ally. It's very good stuff. Having a unit like this, it's going to be able to heal and provide extra defense to your squads to keep them alive, becomes invaluable as you get later into the mid-game and just into the mid-game in general, just because AoE attacks become so much more apparent. And losing one of your units, or I should say losing one of your characters in a unit to spammed AoE attacks early on, or spammed magic attacks, especially in Elheim, feels terrible and is going to severely impact the efficacy of that unit until you can get that person back on their feet, and then they're likely to just go back down again anyway if you don't have solid defense. So having something like a Sainted Knight or a Cleric or a Shaman that is going to be a very powerful defensive support unit is going to be huge for any general use squad. Finally, we have Octavia, our Wyvern Master. She's actually set as the squad leader to get flying in there. I like having at least one flying unit in a squad whenever possible because you can always switch them to the leader to navigate rough terrain if you have to in any given map, whatever. But really, the primary reason that Octavia is here is for AoE damage. The rest of this squad is very much either single target damage or tanking and support. And when squads tend to get bigger, like 4 or 5 characters in a squad, you're going to need some AoE damage if you're going to carve through everything in a reasonable amount of time. That's what Octavia does. She's set up with a stat spread of offensive precise, so she's getting good crits, she's got good physical attack damage, while still being fairly resilient due to being a Wyvern Master and having good self-defense. And her setup is as follows. She has the Silver Trident, giving her a mix of physical and magical attack with a focus on physical, which is great, because that's primarily what a Wyvern is going to be doing, with the Lightning Shaker ability. Lightning Shaker is awesome. It deals 100 physical and magical potency to a row of enemies and inflicts stun. And this is key. Not only do we have a magical effect that can deal with a row of enemies, remember we were just talking with our Sainted Knight about the prevalence of AoE magic attacks, but also it's going to stun. And having something that can actually do some statuses to temporarily remove enemies from the fight while you deal with them helps immensely with your survivability. Like, I cannot overemphasize enough how strong stun is. There's a reason that we have an anti-stun ring on Alain. If you get stunned, you may as well be dead in the water. You can't defend yourself, you can't take actions to heal yourself, protect yourself, try and take out an enemy so that they can't hit you or your allies. It's devastating. And being able to do that to an entire row near the start of the fight, brutal. We then have the Shawl of Repose, which is giving us the ability to use Wing Rest and recover our own HP. You can see there's a lot of self-healing in this squad, as well as some AoE healing from our Sainted Knight, and that's big. Just having that durability and survivability for a general use squad, again, going to be very, very strong. We then have a Carnelian Pendant to make it so we have another AP after we use Lightning Shaker, and then a Pursuance Bracelet to make use of our passive points to get some extra damage in when and where we can. As far as our abilities are concerned, we have Lightning Shaker to just go off on a row of enemies. Don't really need anything specific here. I just want her to be using this. And then Diving Thrust to attack a single target, prioritizing cavalry because Wyverns are just good cavalry slayers. We then have Dragon's Roar. This is actually something we just acquired at the end of my previous stream, and I'm not 100% on actually wanting to use this. I haven't changed anything around with it yet because I haven't had the chance to experiment with it. It activates at the start of a battle and inflicts initiative -20 on all enemies. And I mean, that's good. Like, reducing your enemy's initiative can be quite nice, but the thing is, this is a fairly speedy squad to begin with, and even our characters that aren't particularly fast have a lot of follow-up attacks and counterattacks, so they're still doing stuff even before they get the chance to attack. So I'm not really sure that I want Dragon's Roar here. I left it on for an example point in this video about maybe why you don't necessarily want to use every skill in a character's kit, and I think this is one of those, so we're going to take that off. Instead, we're focusing on using Pursuit, Deflect, Wing Rest, and Ground Counter, the primary focus being Pursuit and Ground Counter, to deal extra damage to enemies, sneak those extra attacks in when and where you can. If you're familiar with Magic the Gathering, I kind of view these as instant spells, where you can cast them like kind of in between enemies' turns or in between different actions going on the battlefield to eke in little bits of advantage here and there that really rack up and can potentially lead to a one-round win in the right circumstances, which is quite often with the way this squad is set up. Pursuit, of course, is just bringing in extra physical attacks whenever an ally attacks, which, with a Wyvern, is a fair bit of damage. And then Ground Counter activates after an enemy attacks with an active skill, does the same thing, counterattacks a single enemy, and has plus 100 potency versus cavalry targets. So, whether it's us being attacked or our allies attacking, we can sneak some extra damage in here with Octavia that she might not otherwise get. Then, if she does happen to get attacked by something, we do have Deflect to negate that damage and increase her own evasion. Doesn't happen very often since we have Alain out here ready to guard for us, but if it works, it works. And then Wing Rest, if we happen to take some damage from like a Ranger and survive, or some like AoE magic or something like that, we can use this, get some extra HP back, doubled if we're like burning or poisoned or something like that. Again, resilience is key here, and this squad is very, very good at resilience. And that's the number one thing I think you need to consider when it comes to building a general use squad. Your general purpose units need to be out there able to handle a wide variety of different combat scenarios. They need to be able to traverse terrain well, so cavalry, flying units, or if there's a lot of rough terrain that you need to be able to trudge through that maybe your cavalry can't get through or whatever, infantry units are good for that. They need to have a good amount of stamina, being able to have potentially a leader like, say, I don't know, our Lance Connect here that we can switch to if there's going to be a protracted engagement on the ground before we're able to get stamina back. He's got 6 stamina, so he can really make sure that the squad is able to hold for a long period of time. You want to have a lot of different self-sustaining abilities, heals, defensive capabilities, ways to negate damage, ways to absorb damage, ways to get your own active points and passive points back, etc., etc. Because the more likely you are to clear a fight in one round of combat without your units going down, the longer you're going to be able to fight out there on the battlefield. Finally, making sure that you have a variety of different types of attacks to handle different situations is great. Gerold here can deal with high HP enemies with Bastard's Cross. Octavia can deal with cavalry. Alain can just kind of handle anything he wants to. He's not particularly effective against any one type of unit other than Cavalry Slayer kind of nerfing their points that they can use, but he's able to survive attacks from pretty much anything, which is good. And then Theiss is out here as an anti-magic specialist, making sure that the team doesn't just get nuked. There are other things that I could incorporate in here. Of course, we could either get more magic damage in or potentially something like a breaker to inflict guard seal and deal with armored units, things like that. Once we get this up to a 5-man squad, we could incorporate something like a shaman to really nerf enemies' damage output, or we could maybe put in something like a ranger or a sword fighter to deal with the enemies that are particularly dodgy, hard to hit, backliners, stuff like that. Generally, when you have a unit like this, just having that versatility is key. That's why my characters like Virginia is so good, because she has a bunch of her own built-in anti-particular unit effectiveness skills, which is great. All in all, though, this is an absolutely baller squad. You can swap these pieces around to do different types of things, incorporate different classes, different unique characters, whatever it is you want to do. But this overall setup is going to be a very strong foundation for you to build from to make your own general purpose units. If you can get 3 or 4 of this type of squad online, you'll be set for the majority of the game, and then you can build out your other more specified squads like your Bruno's Bombardiers or your Super Tax Bros or what have you. Things that have much more focused capabilities that they are extremely deadly in, but then maybe aren't as equipped to deal with a wide variety of scenarios. These are the guys that you're going to have that can help those other specialized squads with that. With that said, I hope this was very helpful for you. This is a fun little quick one to put together, and I figured it was going to be a good example of how people can kind of build their units out to be more effective, because I've seen a lot of, like, I'm just kind of throwing random crap together and seeing what works, and I don't feel like I'm being a very good tactician as a result, because I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just kind of bashing my head against the wall until things work. Try a general setup like this. Take whatever pieces you have available to you and put them together in a similar fashion to this and see what works. I bet you'll wind up in a situation where you have better synergy and better survivability against a much wider range of enemies. With that said, though, I'm going to start wrapping this one up here. My name has been Tom, otherwise known as Titanium Legman. If you have your own setups like this that you want to drop in the comments, either for me to see, potentially highlight if they're particularly cool, or so that other people can draw inspiration from them, please feel free to do so. We all benefit by sharing knowledge about a game as deep as Unicorn Overlord, and I'm certainly not like a master by any means, so I've learned plenty from you guys just like you all learn from me. Until then, though, I do hope you all have a good night. Thank you all so much for watching. Stay safe and healthy out there. And remember, be good to each other. Bye now.